Do you eat breakfast?
I had breakfast today. Yeah.
No, you did. Do you eat breakfast most days?
No.
No.
No,
What
bro. I
was?
wake up. I wake up at 3:50 in the morning. My fiance's like asleep, so
Uh-huh.
like I'm sneaking out of the apartment.
Oh, okay. Do you
Yeah.
have the early shift here or something
Yeah.
usually? Like,
Yeah.
what is that? What time do you usually come in?
So flight starts at 5. Got to be there by like 4:45.
Okay, so you're really one of the early birds for sure.
Yeah.
So you don't want to
Well,
wake her up.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. She goes to work at like 11 or something like that.
Uh-huh.
10. So like, she goes to sleep later than I do. So
Oh, and she goes to sleep later.
Oh yeah,
So
she gets
you're
off
like,
work at like 8. So like,
yeah,
this is what happens, right? So I get home probably around like 2-3 o'clock, depending on the day,
yeah,
and then like obviously like tired, right?
yeah.
But I gotta wait for her to get home, like 8:39.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, my old lady, she's a D1 yapper, like could have gone pro. And so she comes home, talks to me till 10:30. I'm like, look, I have to go to sleep. I need to wake up at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wow, that
So,
sucks though.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it sucks, but like in all reality, I mean, flying in the morning, it's the best. Like
Oh,
it's
really?
always super smooth.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
like you can really get a lot knocked out without a bunch of like traffic, so to
Yeah.
say, a bunch of people in the air, but
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
could be worse.
Well, then I'm gonna ask you more about that stuff, anyways, because it sounds like there's a lot of good stuff there to get from you. I always like to ask people about their work-life balance a little bit, just so people have a little bit of insight. And obviously, as a CFI or as a student, it changes a little bit when you become an airline pilot or whatever you may end up doing
Mhm.
next. But I like to ask the question about breakfast because a lot of people are like, "No, I just ate a protein bar. Or I didn't eat anything." That's usually what people say. But today you got to wake up a little later. You got to eat.
Oh yeah, she
you got to
made
eat
me
some.
breakfast.
She made
man.
you breakfast.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was
that's
nice.
fire.
Little croissant breakfast sandwich.
What? I
Yeah.
need one of them. I made
Ugh.
I made a little wrap today. I had a little green tortilla, but
Little green tortilla
yeah,
wrap.
it's like
So
a little,
bad.
yeah, it's whatever. Air fryers are awesome. All right, well, so we have John today. John is our guest, and I appreciate you for coming and joining us today for the 10th episode of Pilots Say What. Now, I do have the initial question I like to start off with, and if you're not familiar, we'll see what your answer is. But just in case, Pilots Say What?
What?
Exactly, because this is the podcast where you can come and listen to hear what pilots have to say. And so I'm really excited to hear what you had to say today. I want to start off by asking you, well, you told us what you had for breakfast, so that's awesome. But I want to start off by asking you how your morning went.
I mean, it's a pretty typical
Yeah.
morning, walk
Mhm.
the dog,
Mhm.
had breakfast with the old lady, nice
Yeah.
cup of coffee,
Oh,
got the
nice.
French press rolling early this
Ooh,
morning.
I love French presses.
So yeah, got to sleep in. Sleeping in for me now is like 7:38.
Well, that's nice.
Oh yeah,
That sounds
yeah.
nice in comparison.
Oh,
Some
trust
people are like,
me.
that's early. I tell my friend, say, hey, bro, let's meet at like 10 a.m. for this and that. And he's like, dude, that's early. And I'm like, no, it's not. What world do you live
Have you
in?
seen those memes where it's like your unemployed friends like at like 2:30 on a Tuesday, and it's always something just off the
To
wall?
just do whatever they
Yeah,
want?
exactly.
Dude,
It's that one.
dude, I was always that guy. I'm not gonna lie. Because I worked jobs where I could do whatever. Like the schedule was always all over the place, so I just kind of
Mhm.
didn't care. I was that guy. I was that friend. I was like, hey, bro, you're not trying to like go to the movies at noon on
That's
Monday?
fair.
Whatever. So, anyways, well, it's nice to know that you had a good breakfast. I love breakfast. It's my favorite question. Well, John, so we're here at Thrustlight. You're a CFI. Can you tell me a little bit about where you went to school for flying? Did you go to Thrustlight or did you do anything differently? What was that journey like?
Yeah, no. So I am a ZTA product through and
Mhm.
through.
Mhm.
Started off with 0 hours at Thrust
Mhm.
in May of last year. I think in March.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
a
Good.
little under 11 or 10 months.
What was it, about 10 months?
About 10
Honestly, they
months.
already got on me about counting the months, so I refuse to do it now.
That's fair.
But it
Um,
sounds about right.
Yeah, so roughly on average.
Mhm.
Yeah, so started absolutely zero
Mhm.
experience. Actually, I went to University of Oklahoma, got my degree in economics,
Mhm.
worked in finance for a few years, and then started to realize that the desk life was not for me.
Yeah, why
Um,
not? Like, what is it? Is it something about just?
It's the monotony. It's
Yeah.
like I was in charge of transfers
Mm.
for like incoming financial accounts.
Oh, okay.
So just the same thing every single day. No sense of accomplishment.
Mm.
Moved into sales after that and did sales for about 6-7 months. It wasn't bad. It wasn't amazing. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But I realized that
Just.
I don't want to listen to a dial tone for the rest of my life.
I hear you.
And then one of my best friends, he talked about pilot school, and I, at first I dismissed it,
Yeah.
and then I started looking into it a little bit more, realized the work-life balance is amazing.
Mm.
Yeah, you're gone when you're gone, but you're home more often than someone who works like a 9 to 5, right? Like
Right.
they're home from 5:30, 6 o'clock, depending on traffic.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got to go to bed by 10:30.
Yeah.
And then you get 2 days off, 48 hours in a week.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, well, if you get 18 days off in a month as an airline pilot,
yeah,
you're home way more, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
That was super appealing to me.
Attractive, yeah.
But yeah, went to Thrust one day, walked up. Was like, hey, can I get a tour? And someone came down within like 10 minutes. Super friendly, super inviting.
Did you tour any other places you found Thrust Flight? I mean, what led you to Thrust Flight in that situation?
Well, actually, first, I don't know if I should say this, but
I mean, you can if we have to.
Tried to tour first, right? I was there and I was like, right time, right place. Knocked on the door. No one showed. And finally, I called like the lady in the call center located who knows where.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, you're at the right place. This is the right time. They should be there. And I was like, well, they're not. So I literally just did a Google and just walked up to Thrust and saw Thrust Flight was like right around the corner. And I was like, well, let's go check it out, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, the rest is history, man.
That's crazy. I mean, that goes to show the difference in, well, I don't want to say difference in schools, but like, it just you got to have a good first impression here and it hooked you. And I'm glad you liked that tour. Was there anything in the tour that kind of stood out though? And I know this isn't like a Thrust Flight like sales thing, but I'm just curious. People always say something.
I mean, I didn't really know what I was looking at.
Yeah.
I went in there blind,
Mm-hmm.
like never been in a single piston airplane before, right? Flown commercial, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, got to sit in the airplane, took some cool photos, some cool videos,
Yeah.
and like, so
good enough.
I didn't know, kind of what I was looking at, but I knew that it was super cool.
Yeah, that makes sense. I always like to hear people's journey about how they got to the seat right now. Well, that's cool. How fast did you make that jump? Like, I mean, you heard someone talk about it, and then you eventually went and checked it out. And then, like, how short after that did you make a decision? Like, I'm gonna go ahead and do this. I mean, take a little time.
I think it was less than a month.
Less than a month.
Like, and that's like from like touring to talking to Nathan to getting started.
Okay.
Like, I'm the type of person that's like all in 100%.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I understand.
My fiance, she was not very excited about. She's like, we were just gonna upend our whole like lifestyle all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But I was like, I know what I don't want to do. I want to give this a shot.
Yeah. And went for it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And does she see? Obviously, you're a CFI right now. Does she seem to have adjusted to like or see what you're doing now? Like, how does she think about it now? If you don't mind me asking.
Well,
still figuring it out.
A part of it's super cool, right? Because you do something that like I don't know how to explain. Not a lot of people get to do, right? Then the other half of her is we go out and we're with my pilot friends, and she's absolutely sick of it. She's like, all you guys do is talk about airplanes and maneuvers and stuff like that. And it's just like, all right, what do you talk about when you're with your friends? And she's like, work. And I was like, come on. Yeah, exactly.
But the difference is when pilots are talking, they're really like, when someone's in aviation and they're talking, I mean, you're really into what you're talking about. And it's not I mean, I say it's not very relatable. You're going to talk about a lot of things that people aren't going to know anything about.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's a completely foreign language. Yeah. I mean, I remember day one, like going in, like obviously like I was blind, didn't know any of the phraseology, terminology that like they were using. All these acronyms were being thrown.
I'm still like, I've learned a lot on this podcast about all of that, but continue. Yeah.
And no, I just was like, oh my gosh, I might be in over my head. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and then you go into like more advanced flying and it's like a language within a language. And you're just like, oh my gosh.
It continues to double down a little bit.
Exactly.
Well, and that's something people talk about too. Like when you first came in, you made that decision, you made the adjustments. Eventually you had to put a 2 weeks notice in and things like that. Did you, like how overwhelming was it? And then like, when did that kind of start to change? When did you start to feel finally like you have your feet planted?
So the first few weeks, first 2 weeks maybe, I'd say it was like a little overwhelming. And then I was doing my homework and I went up to like one of the study halls and I noticed one of the guys from my class was up there. And I was just like, hey man, you want to study together? And so he was like, yeah. And then we like formed a little group. And by forming that group, like that little sense of community, we were able to, ask each other questions and like figure out where like, hey, I'm having an issue here. Maybe you understand it better. Can you explain it to me? Yeah. And like literally after that, everything was like, smooth sailing from there. Right. It was way better.
After you, like you said, after you formed that little group and you're used to studying with a couple people at least, it feels like smooth sailing. You didn't quite feel like you were in over your head anymore, right?
Sometimes.
So that's okay, good. Well, that's good to hear because something got you all the way to CFI. So, and it sounds like you did it in a reasonable amount of time. That's one thing that we talk about a lot here at ZTA, at Thrust Flight, about the ZTA program. Okay, well, how's it been being a CFI? I mean, is that a fun transition?
Yeah, no, it's actually super cool. You get to see the other side. You get to see, you don't realize how much more goes into it whenever you just show up at your time and you do your pre-flight and hop in. There's so much more to it, but it's so much more rewarding on the other end. Seeing it click, like explaining something, we're struggling, hey, let's break it down, let's explain it. Seeing it click and seeing people improve, it's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool.
But at the same time, I'm still learning. I'm always going to be learning. I think I've learned more in the, what is it, like 2 months instructing than I did in the last like 4 months of training, right?
You're right, and that's not because you didn't learn a lot in the CTA program. Like,
many different situations.
Yeah, there's so much more. And, I think every time we mention something about how much you learn when you're teaching versus how much you learn as a student, like they say, two people are learning when there's a student and a teacher.
Exactly.
So, but I think I said that already before too. But I just love hearing that though. So it's so affirming. Is there anything that you see as like a common, like what's one of your favorite things that you get to work on students with? Because you may notice that there's something that you see as a common issue, whether it be in a maneuver or something in ground course training that they're not picking up. It's super broad. So
yeah, it is. No, but I think the most common thing is like putting in the work outside, like chair flying, right? I think that's the best example is it costs a lot of money to fly a plane, right? Yeah. Regardless of you own it, someone else owns it, CFI owns it. It costs a lot of money to fly a plane. And there's nothing better than free. So if you're struggling with something and you sit there and you actually just sit there and pretend to fly, it sounds dumb, you feel dumb doing it, but you build that like muscle memory, you build like the repetition that you would be paying for, and you come out better on the other end. Every student I've had where like they've struggled with maneuvers or they struggled understanding like approaches, I told them, I was like, hey, go home and chair fly. Like I'll chair fly with you if you want. Like, I want you to do this. And then they come out way better. I mean, like a million times better because they're putting in the work, even though they're not actually in the plane.
If you give someone advice on chair flying or even using the simulator, are there any other preparation advice you would have for someone who's getting ready for a certain check ride or maneuver?
Ooh, yeah. So I'm teaching an instrument ground class. And one of the things that I made them do was I said, all right, we had like a half day. We were doing like a quick lesson. And I was like, all right, we're not packing up today, guys. I was like, everyone pull out your ACS, it's literally the test, right?
Right.
I was like, let's go through it. And we went through it page by page, and I showed them, hey, these are the standards for what you're going to be tested on. The test is going to be this. Like, you have the answers. You can make them, right? So we went through it, and a lot of them didn't understand, like, hey, if I deviate X amount of degrees or X amount of feet on this approach, I'm going to bust. They didn't know, and that's fair. Right. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
But now that they go through it, I made them highlight everything, and then I said, all right, now as you're getting ready for your check ride, look at what you need to do. Look at what you need to be looking out for. And for my instrument students, I asked them whenever they're, off enough, I'm like, all right, do you think that would have passed? And they're like, oh yeah, man. And I was like, well, then why were you 100 feet below, MDA right there? Like, that's a bust, man. And then it's like, oh, all right,
Yeah, right.
And so, knowing, like, if you're passing, because I've made the mistake, right?
Yeah.
And like going into it and doing a check ride and you're like, did I just fail?
Yeah.
Like that builds so much more anxiety that you already have. So by knowing what you're doing is correct, it just makes it that much easier. Makes it that much less pressure, right?
Now that you're a CFI, I don't know how long have you been a CFI with us now?
About like 2 months and some.
Oh, you did say that. You said about 2 months. Gotcha. So you're going to be working on some of your hours. Do you have any sort of direction or plan, or are you planning on staying in Dallas? Or are you going to try to relocate in the long run?
I don't really know.
Yeah.
Everyone always asks like, oh, you want to go private? You want to go commercial? And it's like, I want to get paid.
I hear you.
So, wherever I go, I'd like to get paid ideally. try and do like regional maybe. If I can land something else like a 135 op, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
But I think if you just keep your mind open, your doors open, eventually, you'll find something.
Yeah. So, have you looked into any of the cadet programs or anything yet? One of our last podcasts, we talked a lot about the cadet program. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. They're changing. I don't know. It's changing.
It sounds like they're changing a lot too.
They're changing right now. All of a sudden, it's more than just having a pulse in 1,500 hours. No, but I've just been waiting, kind of, and like trying to learn as much more as I can, be prepared, because those interviews they are pretty in depth, pretty technical. So it's like, all right, well, let's get a few students under my belt, learn some more, and then once I start feeling real confident, start putting feelers out there for cadet programs.
Well, I'm interested to hear in the future how that part goes. I hear the cadet stuff really helps a lot, moving things forward when you're getting close to that 1,500 hours. So, did you fly? We have mostly Piper Archers here. Do you know how many we have? I think it's about 21. I think I counted the other day.
21, 22, something like that.
Yeah, and maybe the number of planes isn't important, but it seems like we have a large fleet that allows us to always be in the air if we really want to. Do you ever feel like do you feel like our fleet really helps you with getting the students where they need to be?
Well, the number one thing I think that our fleet being not only how big it is, but how new it is safety.
Yeah.
Right? There's something that's very different about going into a plane from 2023 versus a plane from 1963.
Yeah.
That one from 63 is reliable, but it's still running.
Yeah.
But you don't know what you're getting, right? So I think safety is of the utmost importance, especially with new students, right? Because I've done discovery flights with prospective students, and they're like, we're flying in the air and like it's a little bumpy, and they're like, why is it bumpy? It's like, oh, it's the wind, man.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
The way you can feel the elements.
Everyone's anxious and nervous their first flight. So I think safety is the most important thing, especially with these new Archers.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, the G1000 is it's awesome. It's awesome. Yeah. I mean, it has so many functions that I don't even know, like, half of them. I feel like every time I'm like messing with it, I learn something new, it seems like. And
it sounds like it's fairly simple to use once you get over the technological side of it all. So that's what people have said to me. So I obviously haven't touched it. I've seen it turn on, but that's about it. I'm not a pilot, so
no. As you start using it, more and more it gets better and better, right? Like repetition. And then as you start exploring it, that's when you start learning, like, oh, I can do this with it. I can do that with it. Like, you can really change it up and customize it to suit whatever mission you're going out there to accomplish.
Do you see students struggle with the G1000 at all?
I mean, at first, right? I mean, it's kind of like going from like Apple to Android. I couldn't tell you how to work an Android phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But after you start getting that repetition in, it becomes intuitive, and eventually. Eventually you can just start, plugging stuff in without thinking.
Yeah, the Piper Archers seem cool. I haven't gotten to fly in the Piper Archer yet. I have flown in a Cessna, and that's about it. But maybe it's time for me to go up again soon and see what's going on. So
for sure. Yeah, the only other one was the Game Bird.
Yeah, have you flown? You've flown the Game Bird?
Yeah, with Patrick.
Oh, that's freaking awesome, because I know we had the Game Bird up on the website, and then that he does take people up there often in it.
Yeah, spin training. It was insane.
Yeah.
Insane. Just super cool, super fast.
Yeah.
Super responsive. I mean, and Patrick can fly like no other. So
I can tell he can fly.
Yeah.
So I went up during the eclipse and got to see him do some stuff.
Yeah, I saw that video.
Yeah, okay, cool. So I really thought I was going up in the Game Bird and that was my first flight, right? So I think that would have been an intense flight. I mean, would you recommend against that for your first flight?
Oh, 100%. Okay. 100%. Everything's faster. Everything's more powerful. I mean, it's crazy. First flight, definitely take it slow. Fly the trainer, and then move up.
Okay.
I mean, it was only like an hour and some change. We went out to the practice area, did some spins and stuff like that, and some maneuvers.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was just so so responsive. You know,
I can imagine.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. What's something because I want to ask you some fun questions here in a second, but I want to know, what are some of the things, did you feel prepared when you came in? Like, I know you said you felt like some of the terminology was a little intense. Did you do any of your writtens, though, or anything like that? Medical, did you find any of that out until before or after you got here?
So obviously medical first.
Mm-hmm.
The whole point is to go to the airlines or private, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a first class, you can't go to the airlines, right?
All right, okay.
You can't get an ATP.
Mm-hmm.
And some private ops, they fly 91. You can fly without first class, but in general, that's like the number one thing, right?
Yeah.
But then after that,
you didn't
fresh, man.
Gotcha.
Fresh. Yeah.
So then you find out about how there's these written tests that are it's like a big formality that you want to make sure you get taken care of so that you're eligible to fly in our planes, right? Well, we won't even let you fly, right? At that current stage you're in, anyways, if you don't have that current written done, right?
Yeah. So they give you grace, obviously. You know, you have so much other stuff going on. You're preparing for a check ride. Like,
right.
You shouldn't be studying something else, right? You should be focusing on what you're trying to accomplish.
But
yeah, I think it's like after 3 weeks, 2 weeks, it's like, all right, man, like,
let's get on that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I hear that's I think we started finding a way to make sure that people are taking that serious, because that becomes a big bottleneck. We don't want to be waiting on y'all's writtens, it seems like.
Exactly.
So that's interesting. I always like to ask that first, because people always, how'd you find out that, I mean, you did you find out that way because you hit the 3 week mark or anything?
Oh, no. Brian
Miles, right?
Yeah, he made it abundantly clear that you know, you need to get these done as fast as possible. And so me and like my other study buddies, we always got them knocked out. We always try to get them knocked out like the first 2 weeks, like before you really get up in the air, like when you're doing simulator work to kind of get back into the swing of things. Always try and get it out knocked out as fast as possible.
That makes sense. Okay. Well, and then the only other thing I was thinking about was preparation wise, it made me think about, oh, you said you had never been in a single piston engine, and so it was sort of like your discovery flight when you took a tour, right?
I didn't do a discovery flight.
Oh yeah, right. You just sat in the plane. You didn't even get to go up in the.
No.
Oh,
I literally went up and like, I mean, if I started getting motion sick, like that was gonna be it, right?
Yeah.
It was completely unknown for me.
That's kind of brave, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, I never got seasick or anything like that.
Yeah, you weren't too concerned about it.
Yeah.
I get queasy. I do. Like, you put me on a tire swing, bro, I'm out of there.
That's funny.
I swear, but I didn't do too bad that day in the Cessna, given even the maneuvers we were doing and how much we were flying. And I'm looking at a screen. I was pretty surprised that I didn't feel worse than I did. But it sounds like most people recommend doing a discovery flight.
Yeah, you should. You should.
What does it look like if someone wants to come in and do a discovery flight? Do you know? I mean, is that something tough to do? Or
I've done a few. I mean, it's really just getting coordinated with Nathan, filling out a little bit of paperwork, and then what we'll do is see if I, like myself, we'll do a pre-flight with you. Show you, hey, this is how you know the airplane's safe to fly. This is what we check for. You know, walk around the airplane, teach them as we go, and then essentially from there, it's just me doing everything, them watching, reading through the checklist, making sure everything's correct. We'll take off, go to the practice area, and then we'll start, you know, with small stuff, right? Climbs, descents, shallow turns. And then depending on how they feel, we can maybe do something like a steep turn or demonstrate other maneuvers. You know, it's really go at their pace. Yeah. Because you don't want someone to get sick, and no one wants to get sick.
Yeah,
right?
No one wants to. You want them to enjoy the flight, essentially. But the idea is also let them say, hey, what is it going to feel like to do some of these things?
Exactly.
And especially because most of the people who are coming in to do a discovery flight are people who are potentially interested, right, in the program, or even doing something with us.
Just aviation in general, right? I wanna make sure that I provide a positive experience, because even if you don't go with us, who cares where you go?
Yeah, exactly.
Just as long as you like chase your dream and you're actually trying to go achieve something, like that's what's most important. So I don't want to take someone up there and like get them sick or scare them or something like that.
It's not like that.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's, you know, one less person that you get to do that gets to do something as cool as this, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. When you were younger, though, did you ever think about planes? Was that ever like something you ever thought about?
No.
Okay, cool. I was just curious about that.
I'm the outlier, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it was this or law school.
Yeah.
And law school's more expensive and takes longer. And I was like, I don't want to be behind a desk to begin with. So why would I do law school?
Yeah.
So I ended up with this. No, I really fell into it, and I'm really lucky.
It's so weird that people, it's because you talked about, flying the dream and how much you appreciate the experience and how you'd love more people to even share that experience with. So it's just crazy that people do fall into this or fall into any dream. So I was just like, that's why I think that's cool.
No, it's really crazy. A lot of these guys and a lot of these guys at the ZTA program, this is all they've ever wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I'm jealous of them. I wish I would have done it earlier. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, it's really awesome that they're able to do that. For me, I just kind of.
I think it's cooler.
Kind of landed.
I think it's cooler that you can just land in a situation like that because I don't know. It's easy to feel, especially now. Like I don't know how people younger than me are feeling. Right? Obviously, like I'm 29, so let's say someone's 19 and they're trying to figure out what they want to do. I mean, with social media and I grew up with social media too, but you just get so much information.
MySpace was different, wasn't it?
MySpace was different. And then, I don't want to hear the crazy songs I had on my profile. I had undergrounds. I'll just play. But I do think it's cool that you can think to yourself, well, hey, just do the next right thing, take a risk or two, be brave, and then you might fall into something you love. So that's the point I guess I want to highlight there. That's cool. Before we go, is there any additional advice that you would think that you would want someone who's going through any flight program to know, whether it be something that you maybe would have liked to have known or would like to have been told? If not, then we'll go ahead and just
no. I think the biggest piece of advice is there's going to be setbacks. You're going to screw up. You're going to fail. You're going to have a tough time. It's just power through.
Yeah.
Like work extra hard.
Yeah.
Treat it like a job. I know like you're not working right now, or maybe you are working on the side, so you're having to work extra hard. That if you treat it like a 9 to 5, tell yourself you're clocking in and clocking out. You're gonna trip and fall, but you're putting in all that work. It's gonna come.
Yeah.
Be patient as well.
Yeah.
It takes some time, right? You're gonna have to wait on check rides. You're gonna have to wait on weather. I mean, obviously, it's been raining every other day here. It feels like it's been raining almost every day. It feels like we live in Seattle.
No, this last week in Texas, I mean, if you're not in Texas, first of all, if you're not in Texas, you wouldn't understand because it'll be like it's not safe to go outside at 8 a.m. and then you'll have to wear a tank top at like 2 p.m. And it's been crazy the last week or two, but
it's been really crazy and it's been tough to fly. You know what I mean? Slow a few things down, but we're making it work. Instrument is easy, but don't let like stuff like the weather or check ride waits get to your mental. Like keep hammering it out, keep studying, don't give up, show up every day. And just be prepared to fail, but also be prepared to pick yourself right back up. Right.
It's commitment level. I like that. And we didn't touch a whole lot on it earlier, but you're someone who wakes up early, comes in. I mean, you left a job before and you're doing this now, and you sounds like you're very about it. And so that's something that a lot of the guests we've had have had in common is they just know it's a commitment level that's worth the goal, and y'all all seem you have a high aptitude for positive thinking. So that's good. That's good. We love having new guests every week. This is our 10th episode. So thank you again, Mr. Civic. Can I call you Mr. Civic?
Yeah, sure.
for joining in and giving us some insight. I really hope everyone gets a lot out of this. I really enjoyed the conversation, so it was nice. We hope to see y'all next time. If you did enjoy what we did on this episode, please subscribe to the YouTube channel or go to our website. You're welcome to give us a call, ask some questions, even book a discovery flight. We'd love to have you here. And if I see you out there, then say hi.